Instead, I'm going to play you a Northern Soul track or two because we're going to be joined by a couple of people in a moment, Will Foote and Lewis Henderson, behind the Deptford Northern Soul Club, which, given that Deptford is very much in the south, is something worth investigating, especially because it was recently rated #1 club night in the UK by Time Out, no less. So we're going to be talking Northern Soul and a bit of Deptford. Indeed I do. Just a little primer for our subject of this half an hour. Because we're going to be talking about a Northern Soul Club down in the deep south.
First time I called you, girl, they say you wasn't home. And the second time I tried it, they say you want to be left alone. We had a lover's quarrel, yes we did, like all others do. I'm ready to make up. It's all up to you now, 'cause 7 days is too long without you, baby. Come on back to me now. 7 days is too long, girl, without you, baby. Come on back to me. I refuse to break up. You know, it's written on your face, just as well as mine. 'Cause 7 days is too long, girl, without you, baby. Come on back to me now. 7 days is too long without you, baby. Come on back to me. Let's stop playing, girl. I can go sing.
Couple of Northern Soul classics there, and the reason for that is we're about to go down to Deptford, which is in the deep south, for some Northern Soul, or rather we're bringing up to us, because Will Foote from the Deptford Soul Club which has just been rated #1 in the UK by Time Out, is here with us now to tell us more. Welcome to the show, Will.
Good morning, thank you for having me.
So, how long have you been doing this?
7 years nearly. So it started in November 2016. So Lewis, who I run the club night with, we both kind of converged in London at the same time. We've known each other since we were 2.
Right.
And we wanted to do something musical together because we'd been playing in bands growing up together, and could no longer really play in bands or play instruments ourselves. So Lewis had been living in Berlin for a bit and been going to these soul nights, and we'd grown up with quote unquote Northern Soul. Lewis's dad was a Wigan casino stalwart,
Right.
and had an amazing jukebox in his front room. So we grew up with all the tracks. So we thought, right, it's music we both love. We're going to do one night at the Bunker Club in Deptford, and we've been doing it ever since.
It's funny because I'm of a generation when there really was a geographical divide. If you were from southern England, and I would put a line somewhere through the middle of Luton, so it was pretty far south. It wasn't sort of the Midlands really. Anything south of that, I'm going back to the mid-70s, was jazz funk, and we were into new tunes. It always had to be new. It had to be funky. North of that was Northern Soul, and they dressed differently. They had different music, different clubs. It was it was like a sort of an apartheid. You know, you didn't cross that line, if you know what I mean. So I still have this thing. Northern Soul. That's not for us. That's not a London thing.
Well, that's it. It's Northern Soul's kind of grown into this almost genre in its own right.
Yeah, it has,
People class so much as Northern Soul, and people have very strong opinions about what is Northern Soul and what isn't. So we tried to keep it musically as straight as possible. We're not too worried about what people dress like, how they dance, how they approach the night. But as long as we keep the music on the straight and narrow of Northern Soul, I think we're doing our job.
And is yours cross-generational? Because I mean, you seem very young to me. Because I think of Northern Soul as a '60s thing.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, it's music that you're very much. So do you get people from all of those generations coming along?
Yeah, especially pre-COVID. I would always joke that we'd have 18-year-olds down the front,
right,
and it would slowly get older as you go back. So when we started in Bunker Club, we had this fantastic old boy in his 80s.
Wow.
Who'd come down at 10 p.m. and have a beer and sit at the back for 2 hours maybe, and then as it got a bit busier and a bit more rowdy, he would take himself off. So we don't see that so much now. And it's a bit more of a younger generation, I'd say. But yeah, we absolutely love it. And especially so many people come to our nights with their stories of their own experiences of Northern Soul. And that's amazing.
And is there many
for us
like you who are sort of second generation? Their parents are into it?
Yes. Oh, so many.
Really?
So many people say, "Oh, especially my dad was at Wigan" is a common phrase at our nights, which is it's really lovely because occasionally they bring their dads, and that's what we want. We want anyone to feel welcome and come to our nights, and we just because space wise, it's always a bit empty at the beginning. So these amazing dancers come down and often dance for 2 hours. And then as it fills up a bit, they might head on and go elsewhere. So.
I mean, obviously, the dancing was a massive part of the Northern Soul scene. And again, there's two styles of dancing to funk and Northern Soul were very, very different. I always think of Northern Soul as sideways dancing. I never quite got that bit. It can be quite intimidating, though, can't it, when the real top dancers are on the floor and they're doing spins and backflips and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm just jealous for one. I
can't do it.
I can't do it. There's a reason I'm the DJ. But I think a lot of the time these days, if there is someone who is incredible, people give them room and just watch and really
it's
enjoy
part of the
it.
entertainment.
It's amazing seeing someone in full flow. They're doing the backdrops and the spins, and it's incredible. And it really does add to the whole the vibe of the evening.
Oh, absolutely. No, watching great dancers, even if you can't do it yourself, is always inspirational.
Well, it's especially when you see people kind of come a few times and then they start putting the moves together, and you see them sort of ease into it like that, or a group of friends, and especially kind of university students 18, 19 kind of coming for the first time, and then 3 years later we're still seeing them at the nights, but they know the moves now and they look amazing.
And do they know all the tunes? Because one of the other things about the Northern scene was it always kind of prided itself on finding obscure tracks that no one had. Does that still happen, or have they all been found now?
There's still so many. We have a reissue label where we reissue old Northern Soul tracks on vinyl, and when we get the tapes from the record labels that own the licenses from, there's 10 tracks on the tapes for every one song that's going to be released, and they're amazing, but they've never seen the light of day, and there's no contract in place with the artists at the time, so they're really difficult to license.
And are they all still going back to the 60s or early 70s?
Yeah.
Or is there any more modern stuff? Because there is a sort of a modern soul scene.
Yeah, there is a modern soul scene. We tend to shy away from that only in the sense that we do what we say on the
not your
tin
thing.
with the Northern Soul Night. But there's so much amazing British soul music at the moment. In the last 5-6 years, has been amazing.
Yeah, but what I mean is there was also there's a scene kind of based around sort of 70s, almost getting into disco stuff.
Yeah, there's been Northern Soul over the years has had so many iterations, and the British bands all tried to do what the American bands were doing, but 5-6 years too late, they'd already moved on in terms of their sound and were heading towards disco and proto disco and things like that.
See, proto disco is one of my favourite eras. Sort of 72, 73, strings coming in. I love all that. Sort of stuff.
Get to 3 a.m. at one of our club nights, and there might be the odd proto disco track thrown in, and can people lift their head and go, "Oh, I get it." I think that's the thing we really enjoy is Northern Soul was the original club music, and so much of it is 4 to the floor and driving, thumping beats.
Yeah.
And when you've got a group of teenagers coming in for the first time who have been to a house night the night before, they come into Northern Soul Night and they go, "Oh, the context, I get it, right? This is."
There are kind of similarities, aren't they? They both have that same driving, and as you said, a 4 to the floor kind of rhythmic feel.
Exactly. Like the slow songs don't go down well at our nights at all. They don't want it.
Really?
They people look confused, and if there's one that's slightly off kilter in terms of the beat or anything like that, you can see them kind of looking a bit confused until they kind of get their heads around where it's at. But if you're playing sort of that Motown backbeat for hours and hours, they understand it.
Do people still buy and sell records? I mean, not necessarily in your club.
Very much. Yeah, there's
because that was always a big part of the scene, wasn't it? People would turn up with crates of sevens.
It's a bit harder these days to show up with your crates of records and then take them on the bus home after a club night. And there's just no space in clubs these days.
Those big old dance halls that they were in back then.
God, yeah. I mean, what I would do for a big old wooden dance floor in London, it doesn't cost.
Tell me about the venue.
So at the moment we're in Moth Club in East London in Hackney, and that's got a lovely small wooden dance floor in there, and
Is it sprung?
It's not sprung, but Moth Club's got a fantastic working men's club vibe to it, and it's got a nice little kind of sidebar. You feel like you're in the pub, and then you go into the back room for a dance. It's really, really nice. But where we started at Bunker Club, it is a bunker. It is a concrete floor, and it's unforgiving, and it's not.
My knees could not cope with that.
No, years of that. And actually, we were playing at the Fox and Firkin in Lewisham last night, and several of our old regulars from South East London came in and said, "Oh, it's nice to have a wooden dance floor for once instead of the concrete." So,
I mean, you said it's kind of it's very liberal and open in terms of the fashion. Do many of the people wear the classic sort of big wide baggy trousers and sort of star jumpers and all of that stuff?
Yeah, a few. I think the ones who do sort of have their own play on it, if you see what I mean. I had a great bag last night. Lots of the Northern Soul guys come down with their bags with their shoes in, with all the patches from the various nights they've been to. There's an amazing one last night.
Is there talc on the floor?
No. Well, it depends where you are. Sometimes we play in venues, and the venue staff have put a big sign up saying no talc allowed, and you think, I understand it. We've played venues before where I've seen the venue manager or the bar staff come and actually sweep the talc off, like mop it off people's shoes and things like that. So it's just the modern way in terms of clubbing. It's a bit more rigid compared to what the early 70s was.
Are there any all-nighters still? Because that was always a big part of the scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, they call them all-nighters, but in terms of actually going all night,
they're not.
It's the UK in 2023. Clubbing rules are pretty strict. But yeah, King's Hall in Stoke do an amazing all-nighter, and Richard Serling's doing Blackpool International Festival every year. Do
you go up to some of the northern venues?
We'd love to, but we're working.
Really?
So it's always
You're busy
that way.
guys.
Well, it's because we come summer, it's every weekend, and so we don't have the time, sadly. But because before we used to go, as well as doing art night, we'd go 100 Club or we'd go wherever.
Because the 100 Club was always one of the real kind of bastions in London.
Still is.
Is it still?
Still very much it. I'd say
it?
that's in terms of what we aspire to be, we don't aspire to be 100% of what they do, but in terms of the longevity and the respect they have and the music they play, that's the elite. And everything we do is less.
Oh, no, you're being too self-deprecating, sir.
Well, I think we bring a kind of a more energetic young crowd, if you see what I mean, and definitely.
Which I think is great. I mean, I'm an old clubber, to the core of me, the soles of my shoes, and for a while, I think because of the absolute dominance of house, it became a little bit, for me, it became a bit monocultural. It was a bit samey. So I love to see the fact that there's Northern Soul clubs or there's jazz funk clubs or there's reggae clubs. Do you know what I mean?
That's exactly what we want. We want people to say, come to, if they're going out 4 times a month, come to a Northern Soul night, go to a techno night the night after, come and experience everything that is on offer, because they all have their place within the cultural landscape.
Absolutely.
And in club world. And it's important that in the same way that we're fighting for venue space, that the jazz funk scene can fight for venue space and people support it.
Is there a problem with venues here in London? Or is there a shortage, would you say?
Well, they're closing at a rapid rate.
Really?
And
COVID must have really...
COVID and its energy costs, and the venues often cost a bit more than they used to, and in terms of what they're offering, they're often a bit more reserved. Instead of trying something new, they might go with something they know works, which is totally fair enough. But we as a city, I think, could do better in terms of preserving the institutions we have, as well as looking at ways to open new ones.
I agree completely. I mean, I think it's absolutely essential that London is meant to be a city that dances and has fun and is hedonistic and joyous and all of that sort of stuff.
Well, you look
and if you keep closing those down.
Yeah, well, if you look at the continent, Amsterdam and Berlin especially, their nightlife culture is revered and people go there specifically for it.
And ours always was, but I think you're right, you're in danger. We've been sort of usurped by others, perhaps, in that way.
Yeah, and I think, it's some sensible thought around licensing and a little bit kind of leeway. Clubbing's often had a bad reputation over the years for disorder and whatever, but most people who go clubbing and want to go dancing aren't going out for any other reason than the music. And I think it's important to recognise that they're not just a place where you can go and drink alcohol until the early hours. They are more than that. They are often a lifeline. We get so many people coming to our nights who come by themselves and really enjoy it, and as it's an outlet for them. And if that's happening at our nights, then it's happening all over the city. Well,
more power to you, I say. Where can people find out all about the stuff you do?
Our website, deptfordnorthernsoulclub.co.uk. Instagram's the best way to go. That's where you can see all the photos from the previous nights, and it's an easy way to engage with us. So if you're on there, give us a follow.
And are you still Deptford Northern Soul Club, even though you're not in Deptford?
Yeah, we're still Deptford Northern Soul Club. Yeah, I should clarify. We both, Lewis and I, lived in Deptford pre-COVID and have since moved away, sadly. But it started in Deptford, and it's Deptford is part of the identity. Kind of the characters we met in Deptford and who ran the club ran the club that we started in, are very much. Our core values are based around what we learned from them. So it's
amazing, though, that an area like Deptford, which also sort of was one of the places that gave rise to the new kind of jazz scene in London. I mean, when I was growing up, everything was in Soho.
Yeah.
Or if it was really far out, it was in Camden Town.
Yeah.
Because it was always in the centre, because you could get to the centre easily from everywhere. These days, it's in Deptford, or it's in Tottenham, or it's in,
Well, this is where I think London's slightly unique, that we could do 2 parties a weekend, one in Tottenham and one in Deptford, and have a completely different crowd. Whereas, like you said, in the old days, you maybe do one club night a month in Soho, and everyone who wants to go in for it comes in for it. And in terms of clubs in Soho now, apart from the 100 Club,
almost nothing.
I couldn't name you many that will go late and do interesting things.
Well, I was going to say you're down there in Deptford, but you're not. Where are you currently?
Moth Club and Earth. So Moth Club in Hackney, Earth in Dalston.
Have a fantastic night.
Thank you very much.
Or nights.
I've seen love go by my door. It's never been this close before. Never never been so easy or so slow. Been shooting in the dark too long. When something's not right, it's wrong. You're gonna make me lonesome when you go. Dragging clouds so high above, I've only known careless love. It's always hit me from below. This time round it's more correct, right on target, so direct. You're gonna make me lonesome when you go. Purple clover and queen anne lace, crimson hair across your face. You could make me cry if you don't know. Can't remember what I'm thinking of. You might be spoiling me too much, love. You're gonna make me lonesome when you go. Flowers on the hillside blooming crazy. Crickets talking back and forth in rhyme. Blue river running slow and lazy. Oh, I could stay with you forever and never realize the time. Situations have ended sad. Relationships have all been bad. Mine have been like Verlaine's and Rambo. There's no way I'd compare all those scenes to this affair. You're gonna make me lonesome when you go. You're gonna make me wonder what I'm doing. Staying far behind without you. You're gonna make me wonder what I'm saying. Gonna make me give myself a good talking to. I look for you in old Honolulu, San Francisco and Ashtabula. You're gonna have to leave me now, I know. I'll see you in the skies above, in the tall grass and the ones I love. You're gonna make me lonesome when you go.
That might be, I know this is a big claim, that might be my favourite ever Bob Dylan cover. Madeline Peru's gorgeous version of You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go, which is a gorgeous song anyway. Talking of gorgeous, Maxwell Hutchinson is here. He's just walked in looking fantastically liturgical.